Guys, let's settle in. So we've got a last suite of talks, 2 talks, a break, and final set of talks. I don't think I have any other announcements. We have a pair of reading glasses that are unclaimed, and there is a messenger bag, Timbuktu messenger bag, that is being sought. So if somebody sees it, let us know. Also, I want to hat tip to someone who's one of the spiritual fathers for this conference. Tim O'Reilly has joined us for the afternoon. So thank you, Tim, for all the work that you've done to help bring the spirit of books to browsers and the web. So a round for Tim, perhaps. And I'm sure it's just coincidental that he's here right before a talk by Safari. So, with no further ado, please.
Which side do you want? Okay. So I think most of you guys know us as Safari Books Online. We've been like that for 12 or 13 years at this point. I think 13 is the official number. This is what the website... Better? No? Thank you, Liza. Glad you're here. Okay, so Safari Books Online, this is how we've been for about 13 years. In the last year, we've made a essentially reboot of our entire company in a lot of ways. New brand, new website, new basically everything in a lot of ways. This has given us a chance to sort of relearn a lot of things that we've learned over the last 12 or 13 years. A lot of it that we learned sort of as building the product that we've had iteratively and getting customer feedback. And we've learned a lot of stuff, but as people tend to do, you lose a lot of the things that you learned when you build your new product, and you sort of have to relearn them. And that's a painful process, and we've gone through it in the last year. And today, James and I are here to present essentially a time capsule of what we've gone through in the last year. And so 5 years from now, when Peter Collinridge, our head of product, says that this thing is old and busted and we need something new, we remember some of the things that we've learned throughout that time. The main reason that we've learned stuff in this particular go-around is that we actually have a new data and analytics platform behind it. I know that that's going to be controversial to some people out here, but we'll talk about it and people can complain. But the main reason that we can get all of this data is we get thousands of people every day that come to our website, and they start by signing up for a trial, which looks sort of like this. And then what happens is they stay in our store for 10 days. They have a 10-day trial. And then at the end of those 10 days, some of them pay, some of them don't, and we can learn a lot about who pays and why they pay, and potentially why don't they pay. And we can learn a lot about those things by putting such a heavy volume through our website.
So over these last 13 years, we've kind of gone through, again, mostly this data comes from our new platform, but we've learned some things that, we haven't done so well. And we've kind of boiled it down to 3 things. We've pushed content to customers that customers don't want. Doesn't mean the content's bad, it just may not be right for that customer. We've built features they don't want, so as any product, anyone that's built a product knows, over the course of 12 or 13 years, you're going to add a lot of things. Not all those things are still relevant, and not all those things are needed. And we've also tried to sell the product to people who don't want to pay us. Sounds crazy, but again, we get a lot of traffic, and that's great. But we need to go out and get people, that want our product, and not just blast it to everyone who's out there. So we're going to start with content. Just to give you some background, our titles, it's 35,000 across a whole bunch of different categories. This shows our big ones. We're traditionally known as technical books, but most of our titles are in the business category. We have digital media, we have some personal development, professional development, so really all across the board, and obviously a very large catalog. One thing that we do when people sign up for this trial, it's really easy. They don't have to enter their credit card, they get in. We do something that's a bit old school in some ways. We ask people, what is it that you're looking for? What are you interested in? And that's it's great to kind of get the onboarding process going, but that's also a really interesting data point for us. When we ask people, the most popular topic selection is business by far, and design and mobile and down the list. So if that's all we had, all we'd say is our customers are most interested in business topics. However, when we split up those topic preferences by people that pay us at the end of trial versus people that don't, you see a major difference. We've pointed out one here where people that don't pay us, that's where all that business selection comes from. Now, that doesn't mean we should go get rid of all our business books and focus on tech and move on. But that does say something that we need to dig further into. What is it about that? Is it about our product? Is it about how we present those customers' books? We need to go further. We don't just want to stop there. So then we say, well, what do people actually consume? So there's what they say they want is one thing. What do they consume once they get into the product? Our number one by far is certification. You see business down here is number 4. So it's not like they're not consuming business. It's just that those folks aren't paying us in the end. But certification, core programming, databases, those are the ones that generate the meat of our usage. If we, again, break that content consumption down by those two groups, I pointed out business here. There's actually a little bit, these are a little bit closer. So people that don't pay us, people that pay us, there's a little bit more that overlaps, and that tells us something too. That we can kind of dive in and say, are there particular topics people thought they were interested in? Once they found our content, they said, wow, I'm really interested in these other things. Or again, are there product features that we can tweak to make this content more consumable and easier to find for them? We can go all the way down to the title level. I mean, this is, we just picked a couple books. There's a lot out there. And again, it's not saying these are good or bad books, but the way that they're getting, the people are getting to them, may not be right. We may not be presenting the right books to the right people. Or it could just be there are some older books that aren't as relevant anymore. So what we've broken these down into, these are just some examples of some top titles that people that never pay us read. They get a lot of usage, but those customers never convert. They never pay. And on the other side, there's these titles that just about, these people are reading them. The majority are paying us. Those are titles we want to get in front of people and really kind of move forward with. We brought up this slide. This is a screenshot of our old website, and you'll notice it's a bit hard to see, but our most popular book listed here is one of the books on this top titles that people don't pay us for. So, sure, everyone comes in, they read it, but those aren't the people that end up paying us, and that's something that we've gotten smarter about. We've tried to use this not only for ourselves, also for our publishers. What content is relevant and drive sales right now. This might be a book that's a few years old. Perhaps it was very popular. It's still getting on the screen, so people are clicking on it and reading a lot of it, but they're not paying. And so our publishers can take that and kind of use it to figure out what is popular now, not just in terms of usage, but what are people interested in and willing to pay for. So in summary on the content, don't be shy about asking people for what they want. I'm an analytics guy. I love, we have this data, we can infer things from it. But there's something to be said about asking the customer. And then take that one step further. Don't just ask. See what they then do. And if there are differences, like we found, dive further and figure out why that is. Your use case will be different than ours, but I think there's still this generalization of what people think and are interested in initially, and then once they get into your product, what they do and what they find valuable. Identify content preferences people pay for. Again, we just talked about that. And dive into the title level. For us, I guess in more general, go granular. I think aggregations are really cool. They're great to kind of lead you to areas to do deeper dives. And we want to do that on our site because in the end, we're recommending titles to people.
Peter, this is for you. So the first thing that we want to tell our product people, and they're all here so they can hear this and you can pin them down after the event, is people who read something, anything, get into the reading interface, they're 26 times more likely to pay us. So that may seem totally obvious, but it turns out there's 24% of the people that come to our website every day and sign up for a trial who never actually make it to the reading interface. So getting people from the front door into the reading interface through all of that is really super important. There's a step there of you just got to sign up for a trial. These are people who've actually gone through the entire process of signing up for a trial, and 24% of them don't make it to their first piece of content. So there's things that we have to do here to get people into the first piece of content. The next thing that we care about is also getting people into content really soon. there's content usage throughout your 10-day trial, but we found that you actually, if you get there within your first 50 hours of your trial, it's actually way more important and you're way more likely to pay us. So it's not just about getting people in content, it's getting them into content in the first 50 hours of their trial. The other thing that we've learned, and this is hard to read, and this is from our BI team, and you don't have to understand this, but there's basically a progression, which is the more content you read soon in your trial, the better off you are. So it's not just we want Peter to get people into content, we want him to get people into content sooner and more of it, because the more content you are, the more likely you are to pay. It's a pretty nice scale. We don't want Peter to get people into just one book, though. Like, it's very important for him to get people into a number of books. We found that, if you're into 6 or 7 books, you're 3 times more likely to pay us. So it's really important to get people to see the breadth of our content, and this goes to something that I think everybody can relate to, which is make the Safari's value proposition is that we have a lot of books, and they're about a wide range of topics, and it's really important for folks not to just say, hey, go buy one book, because there's a lot of places. You can go to O'Reilly.com to buy that book. You can go to Wiley's store and buy that book. There's all kinds of places where you can buy the book. The value proposition that Safari has is that you can get all the books that you're interested in at our store. And so getting people into multiple books is a really good indicator that they're likely to pass because they're starting to understand what we're offering. Similarly, and this is just an anecdote, that it's really interesting that a lot of people actually are actively trying to search out and find the breadth of our content. So people are like screaming out to understand our value proposition. And so making this easy, like these are, so just on the right, there's our top 10 search terms this month. And STAR, which basically lists all the titles in our entire database, is the #1. Now we help that out in some ways, but like literally 6% of all searches are searching for the whole thing and and seeing the entire scope of our library. So this is people crying out to understand, like, what's the breadth of our content. And so we really want to help that along. Just for reference, Swift and Python, these are all less than half of 1%. So like there's a pretty big gap between 1 and 2 on the list. We also want people to be encouraged to see the video that we have in the site, and this goes back to our value proposition. We have books, but we also have really great videos. We have, conferences like this and other types of conferences on the website. Getting people into the other conferences is actually a really good signal that someone's going to pay us as well. So again, going back to the value proposition, we want people to see the entire scope of our content, not just the great books. This is also really interesting. People who look at the website or the native apps in the future on our tablet devices are actually also way more likely to pay us. And it's really interesting that the mobile percentage of people who check out on mobile versus non-paying, paying customers versus non-paying customers on mobile, it's really similar. It's tablet reading that's the big differentiator. So if you read on tablets, you're much, much more likely to pay us, and that's a big thing. So we want Peter to make sure when he goes and builds the next sexy feature that he considers doing it on tablet as well, because that's the people that end up paying us in a higher percentage, and it's important to consider those folks. Just some other features that are really important, and I think these are applicable to a lot of the websites for people around here. If you use the queuing feature, which is essentially saving content for later, you're 6 times more likely to pay us. So this is essentially giving yourself like a trail or nugget to come back to our website. If you do this, you're 6 times more likely. So when Peter makes a tour of our new product, or when someone sends out an email, we want to encourage the use of the queue, which is like a notebook or a bookmark type feature, because it gets people back in, and that's, again, a good signal that someone's going to pay us. Also encouraging people to be public advocates of your product is a big deal. This is probably the biggest signal that we found so far. You're 81 times more likely to pay us if you go to make an annotation on screen and you go ahead and tweet that annotation out. And we have a lot of that happens every day, and those people are 81 times more likely to pay, which is just an astronomical figure. Like, that's something that we've got to get people in and doing, and that's what we should be featuring in tours, sending out emails about, because it's a really strong signal that, hey, this type of thing is very important. So just for Peter's benefit, the recap, we want him to get people into content immediately. We want him to remember to focus on the value proposition, and we want to make sure that we encourage people to use the features that get a better sense of like what our product's about and why it's there.
Yeah, and last but not least, our customers. I'm in the analytics part of the world, and you have to remember that your customers are human beings. These aren't data points. What is it about our customers? Who finds us valuable and why? And we can kind of look at this is a very traditional way to look and say, where did people come from and land on our site? And these are the percentages, we call it flip rates, the percentage of people that end up paying us after a trial. People that know about our brand, that understand our offering, whether they came from our corporate site, safaribooksonline.com, to our product sign up, they came from a branded search or a branded paid search or direct, so they knew our domain. Those people, and there's some bias there, but what we've pointed back to is the fact that these people know about us. They've been shown our product. People that come in and land directly on a book page, they may not totally understand that this is a product that provides 35,000 titles. And of course, we can always do a better job, but it does point to the fact that you can have a great product, but you need to tell people about who you are and why you're valuable. Again, this is another thing from our data science team, who we've kind of constructed some linear regression models around what are these data points, what makes people want to pay us money, what are the things that they say this is a great product and they want to sign up. This here, again, goes back to brand. We took over 10 years of data from our previous site, and people who are still on our active email list are still active customers in some way, and said if we have someone sign up for a trial and they knew about us before, they are far more likely to pay us. It's another big indicator around brand, even if that brand is totally different color scheme and name. And then I just have a couple more. We have people come in we've had trials from 191 different countries. That doesn't mean that we should be trying to sell to all those countries right now. The web, I think there's a little bit of a trap in the sense where you feel like you can go worldwide right away. And in some ways we can. But in other ways, we have to focus on our core markets, get the product right for them, and then work on understanding why the product doesn't work in certain geographies. 2 quick points. The United States, our biggest number of trials, pretty good flip rate. So a lot of people do pay us. India has a great number of trials. They're number 2, very low flip rate. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But again, we have some countries that are in the middle where it kind of balances out. So there's focus on the core and then learn to understand the other geographies. We do some things like this, and these don't always turn out. We can look at when are people active. That's not important for all products. For us, it's interesting, but not as interesting as maybe some other products out there. You see here that early morning hours is all pushed back to Pacific time, and this is actually where we started, back into geography a bit, where people that sign up early in the morning, there's a lot of activity, a lot of people signing up for trials, and not a lot convert. A lot of that has to do with international. It also holds true for the U.S., not as strong, and that's something we need to learn more about. We also look at days of week. For us, we're on a 10-day trial, so we have to worry about when are people going to be ready in customer service if there's an issue of payment. When are people going to be converting? So knowing when people are signing up and when they're subscribing is important. And finally, we run into features that we don't understand. Why do people that not pay us use autocomplete more than people that do? We still don't know the answer, but one great thing that Peter and our product team do, and also our marketing team, we provide surveys. These are humans. Again, we ask them. We say, what product features are important? We'll set up a time to make a phone call and have a half-hour chat with some customers. We have an iOS app in beta, and we get them involved. So to wrap up and to finalize, branded product understanding matters. Choose your markets carefully and understand them. And don't forget that customers are human. Data's great, but these customers are human beings. Thank you.